been many times in Europe, but it's the first year here at the trophy. And another one? Do I have to say your name?
I don't know.
Do you know him? Yeah! So now the demonstrators will tell something about their tree, about the vision they have, what they will realize, and also the names of their helpers. Okay, you can start.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me here. It's a great pleasure. First of all, I want to introduce my students, my helper, Alfredo, Brazil, Christopher, Puerto Rico, Mauro, and Paolo from Italy. So, they are gonna kind of style, even for the first time, this tree I have for 20 years. This is the first tree I bought from Japan when I still was at the university. So it's been a long time ago. Was a gift I did for myself when I graduated at the university in Venice for architecture. And I saved money a long time to be able to buy this tree. At that time was a Procumbens juniper, a Yamadori from Japan. I was so proud of this tree, and in 2005 actually I showed this tree at the Genk Award. Then, because Procumbens is not really the best variety for foliage, I decided to graft Itoegawa. So, on one of my many trees in Brazil, I found this very nice and tight variety of Itoegawa that old generation Japanese people moving in Brazil bring there. So I bring some cutting back home, maybe 7 years ago, and 5 years ago we grafted 130 sign graft on this tree, and then I let the tree grow. And in the last year I just take care of getting the new graft stronger and remove completely the old foliage. So now the tree is 100% Itoegawa juniper. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna kind of resparkle the tree, cleaning the trunk, cleaning the liveline, because the graft, some of the liveline grew a lot because the new foliage is calling for a lot of energy, so some of the liveline really thick up. And I wanna just give the first setting of these new lines. Try to bend some of the longer branches down, create a nice shape. So basically it will be kind of a refinement for this tree, and then along the way I'm gonna tell you some of my ways to graft and why I do it, because we are doing a lot of grafting recently in Italy and in Europe to change the foliage of junipers. Thank you.
Now I will present you Mr. Akiyama, but Peter Warren, we can't forget him. He will do two things for us, assisting during the demonstration and translating from Japanese to English. I'm Mr. Akiyama, I come from Japan.
So the research of the most tighter and finer foliage, especially with Itoegawa and Kishu, is going on for many, many years. They select and reselect subspecies of Itoegawa to have the best foliage, and in the same time have also trees and cuttings that they elongate very fast, and in the meantime they keep the characteristic of the small foliage, because you know you can get a tree that when you prune is nice and compact, and as soon as you let extend, you lose some of the characteristic. We have this problem with some Sabina. We collect Sabina in Spain, especially where we can find the best varieties. They are super compact for the condition, and then as soon as we bring home, we start fertilizing, we start giving good light, we start giving good care. They elongate and they lose that tight foliage that they normally have. Most of the time, and one of the biggest problems, especially with Sabina, is that the foliage become weeping. So start with, it's not able to hold itself because the conditions are different. The tree is used to grow, for example, in a very dry and alkaline surface. So you pot in Akadama, you change, you give a lot of fertilizer, and then the foliage change. But there are some type of juniper, especially Ito-Egawa, that it's very difficult to make it change the type of foliage. Some Ito-Egawa tend to, if we stress them too much, tend to become spiky, but most of Ito-Egawa, or especially the varieties that are selected for be grafted on other juniper, they never change their characteristic. And this is the good thing. If you want to design a tree and work a tree in the long run, we don't want the tree to change in the worst. We want the tree to change in the best. So the foliage get tighter, we can go more definition in the pad, we can create structure, and especially when we have to build structure, we need line that can elongate, and then as soon as we start shortening those lines and moving back the auxine in the inner part of the trunk, the tree get denser and denser. That's the good thing. I was impressed to see this year at Shinji Suzuki Garden, one juniper that was grafted probably 10 years ago with a very good variety of Ito-Egawa, and the tree was completely down with no wire, beautiful pads, everything holding itself. That is another problem of most of the type of juniper. We had, again, for Sabina juniper. Most of the Sabina juniper has a so fine and tight foliage at the end that they always have to be wired, to be refined, even the good foliage. But again, Ito-Egawa, for the type and the characteristic, you can have pads that in time you go and you remove completely the wire and the tree get refined and perfect. So I was dealing so many years with these procumbents, and every year, procumbents kind of renew the foliage, so all the older foliage get brown and the younger foliage is nice and blue. But every year you have to re-clean and re-clean and re-clean. And at the end of the story I was bored and I said, okay, I'm gonna graft it. Originally, like 10 years ago, I thought, grafting taking a long time, and then you never know, and you lose the shape of the tree is already done, it's a pity. But for the long run, I will never go back and keep this tree on the original foliage. And now I'm grafting most of my Sabinas and some other juniper. I graft the Communis juniper in the Dolomites. We have what they call Communis alpina. Most of the time we find very good trunks, but again, the foliage is no good. So I'm grafting most of this tree with Kishu or Ito-Egawa. Recently I worked Sabina grafted with Kishu, approach graft, not sign. And this is totally a different world. So talking about grafting, there are two ways basically to graft a tree. One is approach graft. So you take a little plant with roots, you approach to a live line of the new plant, and then you make them match. And in time, you remove, if you need the foliage, you remove the roots, or reverse, you remove the foliage and you keep the roots eventually if you need to add the roots or separate the part of the tree. This tree, as I said, was grafted sign graft because I had already a structure, a main structure of the tree. I just need to change the foliage with the fine lines. So that's the reason why we sign graft 130 graft, and I think maybe 100 took. And now, after 3 years, we are ready to create the new pads. Basically, what I do, if it's a Yamadori, a material that was never worked before, and I already decide I want to graft, I do the approach graft. Otherwise, if the tree has already a structure, like this one, I do sign graft. This is the difference on the approach of grafting I use. One of the secrets for the sign graft is the aftercare, in my opinion, because when we cut a little branch from a juniper and we add to a new branch on the original tree, what we have to do is keep that little cutting moister until it will not start sucking sap and water from the other tree. And this is going to take a week, 10 days. So if we aftercare in the good way, using the bag technique, or what I do when I do a lot of sign graft, I completely bag the tree and I put in a shady place. So having the bag, a transparent bag, is making kind of a greenhouse inside the greenhouse. So I hold a lot of moisture on the tree, and this is helping the little cuttings to take. I'm not a big fan of the original technique of putting the plastic around the cutting, because I feel you risk to make this little cutting rotting, because there is a lot of moisture just in touch with the cutting. So that's the reason I use the plastic technique. I bag it completely the tree, I take the base, I just water once, and then I leave it there until I don't see the little cutting look good. And then I start poking holes, so I allow the new air to go inside and moisture to come out. But then at that time, after 2-3 weeks, the little cutting you can already see if it went right or wrong. If it went wrong, you can put still another one. So this is how I normally do. Branches that obviously will develop in the future. As you can notice, I was pruning a little bit more harder in the top because I had a lot of strength and let a lot of runners in the lower part that this year will take off and create a little bit more lines and more thicknesses for the lower branches, especially in the back part of the tree. There was a lot of competition here from the upper branches, so the lower branches didn't grow as much as the upper part. So now that I have these runners, I can create a nice depth, especially in the negative space under the trunk. I can create depth using those branches. But I'm pretty happy about the final result, and I'm looking forward to see this tree evolving in the next year and coming back at the show one day, maybe with a different dress. Thank you for my assistance.